Conventional readings of Scripture often treat it as a passive chronicle of the past. Within this frame, Rizq, or provision, becomes a mandate to stockpile material assets as a buffer against the world. This accumulation takes place inside the Tagut matrix, a domain defined by high-density resistance. In this field, every object possesses a literal thermodynamic weight that exerts a constant downward pull. Gathering material wealth increases your total mass within this resistive environment. As your mass grows, so does the friction you encounter as you attempt to move. Eventually, the accumulation reaches a critical threshold. The personal gravity of these hoarded provisions forces the system to collapse inward, pinning the individual under the weight of their own gathered mass. The Quran preserves the specific failure mode of this physics in the account of Qarun. His hoard was so immense that the mere keys to his storehouses required a team of men to lift. Verse 2881 records the earth swallowing him and his home. This represents a literal topological failure. The ground itself could no longer support the density of his focused material accumulation, resulting in a total collapse. These accounts serve as technical documentation for the behavior of mass in a resistive field. They illustrate the high cost of immobilization in a system designed for traversal. Escaping this downward pull requires shifting away from the physics of hoarding and toward a model of propulsion. Every human vessel begins with a preloaded energetic charge. This is the nefq, the breath of spirit described in verse 1529, which provides the initial potential energy needed to overcome the static friction of the material world. Navigating this terrain requires Rizq. Rather than a stockpile, Rizq functions as the mathematical distribution of energy required to clear a specific path. It defines your geodesic trajectory, the one route through the world's resistance that requires the least amount of effort to maintain. Because the environment is constantly shifting, this path is calculated against the specific constraints of your individual journey. It is a custom-fit route designed to preserve your momentum. The initial potential energy of the nafq is calibrated to match the requirements of this geodesic path. You possess exactly enough internal pressure to reach the end of the assigned trajectory, provided you do not add unnecessary mass. Verse 2.3 outlines the three-stage sequence required to initiate movement along this path. Stage 1 is gaib, recognition of the unseen. In a material matrix, this means orienting yourself toward the unmanifested wave fields that exist beyond physical detection. Stage 2 is salah. This is the process of structural alignment, where the observer tunes their internal frequency to lock onto the geodesic trajectory. Stage 3 is yanfikun, the continuous release of provisions. This is where movement actually occurs. The Arabic root NFK links spending to the concept of a tunnel, or nafaq. Spending is the mechanism of mass ejection. You create forward thrust by shedding the very things you were tempted to hoard. By releasing mass, you convert potential energy into kinetic propulsion. This allows the soul to tunnel through the friction of the world, maintaining its velocity while the material environment remains static. This system remains dormant unless it is engaged by an operator. Without a conscious trigger, the vessel defaults to the state of forgetfulness, drifting slowly back into the gravity of the Taguth matrix. The command to engage is found at the 1912 coordinate. O Yahya, take the book with strength. This instruction is addressed directly to the reader in the present moment. It shifts the viewer from a passive passenger to an active node in the system. To take the book with strength is to execute the instructions of the 2-3 sequence. This is the moment you engage the propulsion system and commit to the trajectory. When mass is shed in alignment with the trajectory, the vessel accelerates. The friction of the world drops away, and the preloaded energy of the spirit begins to drive the journey with increasing efficiency. The circuit closes as the initial spirit energy of verse 1529 reaches its terminal target at 8922. The energy returns to its source, having successfully traversed the resistive matrix without being consumed by it. The Quran functions as a memory tesseract, a map that allows the traveler to recognize their own origin and destination across every scale of the journey. The energy is provided and the path is cleared. The final requirement is the 1912 activation. When will you take the book?